So we got Meghan's second episode of Our Wives podcast, and this time you're about to learn how to spot when someone wants to steer the conversation into, muddy waters. And Mariah Carey was having none of it, and you're about to find out how she managed to bring the conversation to where she wanted it to be. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and it would be great if you join us by just liking this video, subscribing, and hitting that bell. Let's get down to it. So I'm not gonna spoil the dynamic between them in this episode because that's a lesson you need to learn so you can be aware when someone wants to make you agree with them. So instead, let's take a look at those transcripts and figure out what was Meghan's agenda from the start. Take a look at this. Meghan, I've been stuck on this one for a while because somewhere along the way, and I can't quite place where, but this word, diva, which is the term that this episode is about, which actually means goddess in Latin, the word just warped. It went from high class to high maintenance, from fun, like, yes, diva, to, oh, she's such a diva. These days, it's so often used to tear a woman down, and pay attention to those words. And it bothers me. But what if there was someone out there who might be able to change my mind about it? So right out of the gate, Meghan has a problem with the word itself and the connotation. And that's the general motive of her podcast, the labels. But what does Mariah think about this? But before we delve into that, this is important. Meghan mentions, but you see, I'm still in my same mom dress all day, covered in dog hair. I love that you're like, I just woke up like this actually. That will be important later on. Now, there's something that Meghan does right. When presenting Mariah, she makes a connection, a bridge between them and these words. You get the point, but the name Mariah Carey, it hasn't always been synonymous with extravagance. She grew up poor in a mixed-race family at a time when interracial marriages were pretty rare in the US. Well, say from the growing up poor, Meghan is trying to establish that connection with her guests. And that is nice. That's something that you have to do to set the tone for the conversation because you're having a conversation, right? It's not like you want to impose your arguments over the other person's. Now, notice Mariah's tone when she's addressing this delicate topic of classes and races. I remember being in school in this predominantly white neighborhood where my mom felt comfortable and I tried my best to feel comfortable, you know? But this kid was in the hallway and he said, Mariah has 3 shirts and she wears them on rotation. And it was like, it was true. I mean, the fact that he noticed that, I'm like, Sings, why are you so obsessed with me? But no, I was like, why do you care? But in a world where you're the mixed kid of a full-on white neighborhood, that's what you get. You notice it's very laid back. It's not that oppressive. It's not that, I just overcame that. It was an era of my life that had this struggle, but it doesn't affect me at all anymore. But in contrast, notice how Meghan steers the conversation in a much more serious tone, and you know where she is gonna take the topic. And I think for us, it's very different because we are light-skinned. You're not treated as a black woman. You're not treated as a white woman. You sort of fit in between. I mean, if there's any time in my life that it's been more focused on my race, here it comes, it's only once I started dating my husband. Then I started to understand what it was like to be treated like a black woman. Because up until then, I hadn't been treated like a mixed woman. And things really shifted. So she's implying that just because she was related in some way to the monarchy, then racism caught up with her. Not only that, but the contrast between her argument and Mariah's are, black and white. Pun intended. By the way, I had forgotten this about Mariah. And so like my father's mother was Venezuelan. My great-great-grandmother, right? But my father's family is black, so everybody's like her father is Venezuelan and black because they didn't know how to put me in that box. It's like myself. It's like they don't know how a Latino can be white. And there comes a point when Meghan wants to twist the term to where she wants it to be. It says by the mid-20th century, both terms prima donna and diva, although still used in operatic terms, had become more generalized and slightly derogatory remarks, referring to any ambitious, demanding woman in show business. And to some extent, she is right. It's like a diva is someone that believed that was over most people, that was like handed from God, this skill, this talent. But Mariah doesn't take the bait. Meghan asks, "For you, is it a compliment or a criticism?" And Mariah answers, "I think it's both." For me, I think it's both. I do, because I know the origin of the word, but I know, like, as I was growing up, like I said, my mom was talking about a friend or something. Well, so-and-so is very much the diva. I didn't know it was bad, good. That's how she spoke. Like, it's very much the grandeur of it, all what I envisioned. I was like, oh, and Meghan interrupts, glamorize and fabulous and whatever. Mariah tries to make it seem like she has no real problem with the word. Like, it could be fun sometimes. It can be a compliment sometimes. And, well, that is not in Meghan's agenda, so she has to turn up the heat in some way. She doesn't want a light conversation. She wants to drive the point that being a diva, that the term diva is evil. So she calls Dr. Mashinka Firont Hakopian, a scholar of, wait for it, media studies, feminist studies, and contemporary visual culture. Yes, the following 30 seconds are going to be a bit painful. According to Dr. Mashinka, for queer communities and minoritized communities, the diva has represented someone who possesses a kind of disruptive force, someone who, through the excess of their performance of certain gender tropes, reveals the instability of gender and reveals the ways in which self-invention is possible within a set of otherwise normative gender constructs. But wait, there's more. The diva exercises a degree of agency that's typically withheld from women and femmes and minoritized people, and that degree of agency disrupts normative social constructs and normative social patterns, and therefore produces a lot of social discomfort. Well, I'm feeling social discomfort reading this. And Meghan continues, isn't that also interesting? It is so enlightening how power and agency and self-invention and the diva and her reputation, they all go hand in hand? No, Meghan. It is not interesting, like, at all. Your guest, Mariah Carey, only wants a laid-back conversation. You were talking about hair at some point, and you were having something akin to fun at some point, and you wanted to drive your point up to this again. Luckily, Mariah manages to bring the topic again to her experience, to her life, to her anecdotes, because that's what a podcast is. You might have the topic of the term diva and how people use it for all the wrong reasons, but ultimately you want your audience to hear what your guest wants to say. And in this case, Mariah is remembering what happened with her first marriage. My first marriage, I was very much, what's the word? I was kind of locked away and I was sort of, given the rules and had to stick with them. And Butterfly, a song, wasn't like, oh, I'm a butterfly. It was a song. Mariah brings the interaction back into a laid-back conversation about herself, where it has to be, not about this technical and academic terms of social constructs and feminism and whatever. Then it's Meghan's turn again, and she insists on making it as a fight, as a struggle. Now, you describe as a child, you then go, I want to be that. And then, even when it's been used against you, it almost feels like there were moments where you play into it, because it does feel like it's a bit of a defense mechanism and a coat of arms. You're like, I'm going to own this, but it's also a sign of success based on how you associated it from where you came from. And this is the fun part. Mariah says, and I think on top, I agree with you, but I think on top of that, it's also for laughs, as me and my fans say. Meghan, yes. Mariah, it's honestly half of it is just for laughs. Mariah is sending the signals. Girl, don't take this so seriously. You can imagine Meghan's reaction when Mariah put the divas term on her. Meghan, and I think that's really important for people to remember that there might be this persona. And yes, the diva thing we can play into. I mean, it's not something that I connect to, but for you, it's been a huge part of your and Mariah. You give us diva moments sometimes, Meghan. And Meghan, what kind of diva moments do I give you? And Mariah, don't act like that. Meghan, do you see me right now? Mariah, it's also the visual. Oh, it's the look. Like, Meghan was actually offended of being called a diva. And she finishes that exchange with, see, that's the thing. I associate it differently. That is a diplomatic way of saying, you don't know what you're talking about. This is my podcast. I know my shit. And if you still don't have enough proof of the contrast of both stances, these 2 paragraphs will give you all that you need. Meghan, and I think there's something that people find really threatening about a woman who is so secure in who she is that you go, I don't care what you have to say about this. This is how I want to turn up. And Mariah says, but I think all people that are, they're like, if they want to show up with green hair or this and that, and like maybe they were born one way, or they ended up, or here they are another way, or they want to be fabulous and glamorous, that is up to them. Like, you know what I mean? Completely different worlds and perceptions of the same term. And Meghan is still trying to drive the conversation where she wants it to be. And that doesn't work for a podcast. She's not allowing herself or not allowing her guests to just lead the conversation. The duty of the person that is hosting the podcast is to be able to lead the conversation not where you want it to be, but lead your guest where they want to be, so your audience can get that experience, can get those anecdotes. And that is not happening here, or at least if it's happening, it's against the grain and not in a flowed way. But this is even more baffling. Meghan's thoughts at the end when she recalls Mariah calling her a diva. This is in Meghan's mind. Until that moment happened, when Mariah called her that, which I don't know about you, but it stopped me in my tracks. When she called me a diva, she couldn't see me, obviously, but I started to sweat a little bit. I started squirming in my chair in this quiet revolt. Maybe she was making guttural noises too. Like, wait, no, what? How? But, how could you? That's not true. That's not, why would you say that? My mind generally was just spinning with what nonsense she must have read or clicked on to make her say that. I just kept thinking, in that moment, was my girl crush coming to a quick demise? Does she actually not see me? Do you realize the seriousness that Meghan put into this? And some of you are going to tell me, well, maybe this is satire, maybe she was being sarcastic, maybe she was being over the top. But the problem is that Meghan is never like that. It's not something that you think of Meghan when you think of her, like sarcastic or over the top, with something with witty or being self-deprecating or nothing at all. And she wants it to be clear. When she said diva, she was talking about the way that I dress, the posture, the clothing, the quote-unquote fabulousness, as she says it. She meant diva as a compliment, but I heard it as a dig. You need any more proof? I think Meghan's problem is that she's taking this job too seriously. She's not allowing herself to be a bit self-deprecating as she was back then, and when there was this Suits panel that she says, I'm such a fraud. She was being just playful with the term. It's not like she believed she was an actual fraud, but she was saying it just for laughs. I'm just going to go with that. Like you could consider that you're actually a diva and play with the term, as anyone, including Mariah Carey, would do. Hey, it's funny. Maybe people could do that as an offense, but what would you care about them? It's like Meghan is trying to care too much about the people who use the label to attack women, and not caring enough about the guest, about the human, the woman who it's not worried about being labeled like that, and even is playful, because if she's a diva, she's the good way of diva. She's the good kind of diva, not like, well, other not good kind of divas, if you know what I mean. So I think Meghan's problem is that she should relax a bit more. I understand that we have only 2 episodes. Maybe she needs more experience at this. Maybe in further episodes we will notice that she relaxes and it's not like archetypes, evil people that call women divas are evil, and focus on that. She should focus more on her guests, which so far in the Serena Williams episodes and this episode, she's not doing a great job about it. So that's something that she could actually change. My body language buddies, my name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and until we meet in another video or another live, and remember to download my 100 body language tips right in the description of this video. 2 most important words: much love and bliss. Take care. Love you all.